Hello, and welcome to Leadership Development Skills. I'm your Professor John Harvey, and this week you are working on Chapter 8 in the text. So, I'd like to just kind of jump in here real quick and say I've really been enjoying our discussion boards. You guys have put in some very quality responses, and I know it took a couple weeks to kind of get it figured out, but I've made it worth a lot of points, and you guys have really stepped up and made those posts very enjoyable to read. I hope you've been enjoying my comments back to you. This seems like a better discussion board than I think you'll find in other classes, the way that we're kind of working that out. So I hope you're enjoying it. I'm really enjoying your responses. So I wanted to call that out. So we're talking about work evaluations, and I wanted to combine two different things when we're talking about this leadership development. So at one point, I think we talked about a tall organization versus a flat organization. And a tall organization means that you have a lot of layers of management. So between you and the CEO, how many people, how many promotions would you need to have, right? So if it's a tall organization, there's a lot of layers of management. And by a lot, I mean, it's kind of a relative term, but anywhere from over 4, right, would be kind of a thumbnail there. And it can be, I mean, you see organizations that'll have 8 or 15 layers of management. I mean, it's not unheard of. In the military, as some of you pointed out, the military structure to kind of explain that. But a flat organization, by nature, just is, only one layer. It's like you and everybody works for the boss, or everyone works for one person who works for the boss. It's a very flat organization. And the military will, like I said, will actually expand and contract this way. But that's kind of a side note. What I wanted you to take from this is when we're talking about evaluations, how you do these evaluations and the value of those evaluations makes a difference if you're in a tall or a flat organization. So if you're in a tall organization, these evaluations are usually tied to performance, usually tied to some sort of raise. There's usually a very formal structure there, and it can be somewhat of a stressful thing for a person, but it can also be just like a step or a requirement to get through stuff, and there's not a whole lot of weight to it. I've been in organizations where it's like those evaluations just didn't seem like they really had any effect, right? But if you're in a flat organization, it's almost the opposite. It's almost like you don't get any sort of evaluations. And even if you get one, because the nature of flat, there's not a lot to measure and compare and kind of say, well, how are you doing? Well, I mean, compared to what? It's like, I'm doing the best that I can, and everybody in this organization is doing the best they can. So how do you measure that kind of performance? Well, everyone's 100%. It makes it kind of hard to do that. And so those evaluations turn to a kind of a different structure. It's more like, how do you feel about the company? How do you feel about your role in the company? Are you feeling connected and motivated? It's kind of a different structure. So, and if your company is kind of somewhere in the middle, you might find that there's a combination of both of those things. But I wanted to call that out, that it's a little different when you're in a tall organization versus a flat organization. The other thing I want to bring up is, I don't know if it's in the newspaper right now, but it's been in the newspaper, that over in Boise, Micron Technology was having some issues there with their evaluations. And it seems like, and again, total disclaimer, this is not, me informing you on anything like that. It's just from what I read in the papers and what I kind of saw about this stuff, it sounded kind of like they had an issue with these evaluations where they wanted to try and create more of a strata. There had to be good performers and low performers. And, it doesn't make sense that everybody's all at 100% every time. It's like you're not really performing then, or you're not really evaluating. And there's some philosophical things there. You can say, well, I accomplished 100% of my goals and everybody else accomplished 100% of their goals, therefore we're all at 100%. We all, did our best. But it really, at some point you kind of need to straddle that out and see, look, who are the top performers? Who are the people that are going above and beyond versus those that are just doing their job versus those that aren't quite getting their job done? You need to kind of show that strata to see that stuff. But anyway, it looks like Micron in the papers and is getting some sort of lawsuit over these evaluations. And part of this has to do with kind of that tall, flat kind of organization and what they're trying to measure in those performance evaluations. So a little side note for you. Last thing I wanted to throw out, thank you so much for also covering some of the Q&A there. So in the discussion boards, there's that question and answer section, and you guys have been doing a great job of like looking in there and responding to people and having them do stuff. And I saw one that was like, yeah, no, I don't know how to help you with this. You have to, go to the Professor Harvey. And, that kind of stuff is great. I do plan on and try to respond to those as quickly as possible. But I love the fact that you guys have just been jumping in and kind of supporting each other. So hopefully you're finding between reading the discussion boards and kind of the question and answer stuff, hopefully you guys are feeling a little bit of the vibe that I'm picking up of kind of this close-knit group. So I'm really enjoying the class, really enjoying you guys' participation. So, all right, enough mushy stuff. With that, have a great week, guys, and I'll talk to you soon.